Hey everyone, Victor is here, your organic chemistry tutor, and in this video I want to talk about the acetal formation. Acetals are incredibly common in nature and are important for organic synthesis. The acetal formation is also one of those mechanisms that instructors love to test students on. So let's put our reaction under our imaginary microscope and go over the ins and outs of the mechanism, conditions, and the easy trick that will save you a ton of time on the test. So first of all, what exactly are acetals? Chemically speaking, an acetal is a functional group where you have two OR groups sitting on the same carbon. So those OR groups that I have over here, they can be any kind of alkyl group, anything containing carbon in general. And for as long as those are not other functional groups, we're good. So from the first glance, it might look like it's a diether of some sort, but it is not. We know that the distinctive feature of a functional group is its unique chemical properties. Well, ethers and acetals couldn't be further apart from each other in terms of their chemistry, so you should never count an acetal as an ether. On top of that, acetals can be open chain, like what I have over here, or they can be cyclic, like what I have right over here. Chemically speaking, there is no difference between those. Cyclic acetals form a little bit easier if they make 5 or 6 membered rings, but other than that, there is no other difference that I can point out between those. There is also one other thing that you need to know about the acetals, and that they are sometimes called ketals by some older books and instructors. According to the current IUPAC rules and recommendations, an acetal is an umbrella term, and a ketal is a subtype of acetal, so all ketals essentially are acetals nowadays. If your instructor insists on calling the ketone derivatives ketals and aldehyde derivatives acetals, well, go with that, I suppose. So like in this case, I have an aldehyde, and that aldehyde gives me an acetal. While in the bottom example, I have a ketone, and the ketone gives me a ketal. But as I said, this ketal we can just as easily call that acetal. So name doesn't really matter much, but some instructors are very particular about it for whatever reason. Probably they never got a memo about the current rules, but whatever. So now we know what acetals and ketals are, but you're also going to hear another term, which is the hemiacetals. As the name suggests, it's a halfway acetal. And when it comes to the hemiacetals, they have one OR group and one OH group attached to the same carbon. So they might look like they are a combination of an alcohol and an ether, but just like in the case of the acetals, hemiacetals are their own functional group. They are not an ether plus an alcohol. Now, the good news is that we are not going to pay too much attention to the hemiacetals at all, as those species are kind of unstable and only show up at equilibrium with the corresponding carbonyls or as an intermediate in the acetal formation mechanism. They also show up more in the future chapters in your course once you start talking about the carbohydrates and similar biomolecules. That is, of course, if you're covering those molecules in your course to begin with. So moving on to the chemistry part, how do we actually make acetals? We are going to be making acetals by reacting the corresponding carbonyl, which is going to be either an aldehyde or a ketone, with an excess of the alcohol in acidic conditions. Acid is a catalyst in this reaction, and it is very important for it. Acetal formation is not possible in neutral or basic conditions. Moreover, acetal formation is an equilibrium. We drive this equilibrium using the Le Chatelier principle by either adding excess of our starting material, which typically going to be our alcohol, or by removing water, which is a more common technique. And while the acetal formation is an equilibrium, for the rest of this video I am not going to be showing the equilibrium arrow, I'm just going to be showing one arrow in the direction of my reaction, how I want to perform it. But just so you know that those arrows might have to be equilibrium arrows if your instructor is particular about that, so keep that in mind. So for instance, if I wanted to show a couple of examples of the acetal formation, I am going to be just using one-sided arrow like that, although technically that should be an equilibrium. And while these examples might look scary and intimidating, I promise you that once we go through the mechanism, you'll see that they're not that bad at all. Talking of which, OH. Now the fun part, the mechanism. The entire mechanism is an endless parade of proton transfer steps, nucleophilic attacks, and leaving group dissociations. So the first thing that we are going to see here is going to be a proton transfer protonating our carbonyl like so. Then we are going to form a protonated intermediate, and if aldehyde was somewhat electrophilic before, now it is really electrophilic. So whenever we have any kind of nucleophile around, and in our case it's going to be an alcohol, we are going to have an interaction between that nucleophile and electrophile, a nucleophilic attack in other words, that's going to give us the protonated intermediate. Now, that intermediate is going to undergo a rapid proton transfer with whatever we have floating around. It can be methanol molecule, it can be the conjugate base from our acid, anything with an electron pair. That part is not very relevant. But whatever we have floating around is going to grab that proton and give us a neutral intermediate, which in this case is going to be a hemiacetal. Now, we know that hemiacetals are not particularly stable and they are just going to be intermediates in this reaction, which means that we are going to continue with our mechanism by bringing the acid back and then showing another proton transfer, now converting our OH into a good leaving group. So this part now is a good leaving group, so it can dissociate, and oxygen nearby is going to help us, giving us the next positively charged intermediate. Now, you might notice that this part over here is very similar to what we had with our original electrophile. So likewise, like our original electrophile, it's also going to be extremely reactive with anything nucleophilic in the system. And the nucleophile that we have in the system is again going to be our methanol. That's going to perform a nucleophilic attack, giving us a protonated, positively charged intermediate. Just like in the previous case, we need to pull that extra proton off. I am again going to be using another equivalent of my methanol that will come in, pull the proton off, and give me final product, which is going to be my acetal here. This is a long mechanism, yes, but for as long as you learn the pattern of this mechanism, it will be significantly easier for you to come up with the correct mechanism for any kind of molecule in front of you. So our reaction starts with a proton transfer. Then we are going to have the nucleophilic attack, by methanol in this case. Then we have a series of 2 proton transfers, followed by the leaving group dissociation, which is water in this case, and then we're going to have the nucleophilic attack, followed by the proton transfer to give us the final product here. And while the mechanism is going to look a little bit different based on the molecules that you are inputting into the mechanism, the pattern is always going to be the same. So do yourself a favor and memorize this pattern, because using this as a blueprint, you will be able to come up with the acetal formation mechanism for any combination of a carbonyl and an alcohol that you have in front of you. Now, as I've mentioned a moment ago, acetals can be open chain, like in the previous example, or cyclic. If you're reacting your carbonyl with a diol, then you're likely going to make a cyclic acetal. Keep in mind though that this reaction, like any other cyclization, favors the formation of the 5 and 6 membered rings. So most common diols that you are going to see in this type of acetal formation are going to be ethylene, which is the 2 carbons and 2 OH groups, or propylene glycols, which is 3 carbons and 2 OH groups. Now, in terms of the mechanism, we have the same pattern here as in the previous example. We are going to start by doing the proton transfer to protonate our aldehyde in this case. Once we have that, we've got an electrophile, and the nucleophile here is going to be our diol. Diol going to react with our carbonyl. One of the OH groups is going to be a nucleophile and the carbonyl is going to be an electrophile, giving us an intermediate, which we're going to deprotonate with whatever we have floating around. It can be the conjugate base from our acid, it can be another equivalent of alcohol, or maybe a little bit of water that we are going to have around. That going to give us a hemiacetal, which then going to undergo protonation at the OH, giving us a leaving group, which then going to pop off, giving us a carbonyl looking like intermediate with a plus charge, the oxonium ion over there, which then going to undergo intramolecular attack. That is the big difference between this mechanism and what we have seen before. Before, that would have been an attack by another equivalent of an alcohol. However, in this case, we are doing this attack intramolecularly. So if I number my atoms as 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and I'm making connection between oxygen, which is my atom number 1, and carbon, which is my atom number 5, I'm going to end up with an intermediate that looks like that. So now, if I number all of the atoms here, I have my atoms 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So we've made new bond between 1 and 5, this one over here, and the rest of the molecule is where it was. And just like in the previous example, the last bit here is to deprotonate that intermediate with whatever we have floating around, giving us the final product, which in this case is going to be a cyclic acetal. And from the perspective of the pattern, it's going to be again the same story as before. We are going to start by proton transfer, followed by the nucleophilic attack from our alcohol. Then we have a series of proton transfers, leaving group dissociation, then nucleophilic attack, intramolecular nucleophilic attack in this case, and then we have our final proton transfer, giving you the final product here. And yes, I know, just like in the previous example, this is a very long mechanism, I understand that, but trust me, you wanna practice it to the point where you can write it easily for any kind of compound in front of you. This general pattern of proton transfers and nucleophilic attacks is also going to show up frequently throughout the entire chemistry of carbonyl compounds, including carboxylic acids and their derivatives. So a few extra minutes of practice right now will pay off later in a big way. On top of that, this mechanism is a fairly common exam question, so chances are you are going to have to write it out during one of your next tests in all the details. Now, at the beginning of this tutorial, I promised you a trick. The thing is, being able to draw the mechanism is very important, but being able to quickly visualize the product without going through every single step of the mechanism is just as equally important. So here how we are going to be able to quickly visualize the product for this reaction. Let's say we begin with a carbonyl, ketone in this case, that looks like this, and we are reacting it with ethanol in the presence of sulfuric acid. Now, I know that my sulfuric acid is a catalyst, so I don't care about that for right now. It's not going to be a part of my final product. It's just a catalyst, it's going to do its thing during the mechanism, but it's not going to be consumed during the reaction. So I'm just going to pay attention to my reacting species, which is these two guys. So to quickly visualize the product, what I'm going to do, I will redraw the molecule over here, and then I will show two equivalents, both equivalents of my alcohol, next to my carbonyl, with the oxygens pointing towards my carbonyl, like so. So I'm going to rotate them in space appropriately. The next thing that I'm going to do, I will take my eraser and I will erase the oxygen of the carbonyl, and I will get rid of my hydrogens, and then what I'm going to do from this point, I will just connect my oxygens to the carbon where I used to have my carbonyl. And there we get it, this is our product. So now if I redraw it in a slightly better way, I'm going to have the bottom part over here, bond, bond to each of the oxygens, and then one ethyl group and another ethyl group, and there we have it. Likewise, if I have the formation of the cyclic acetal, the idea is still going to be exactly the same. For instance, let's start with the cyclohexanone over here, and I'm going to react it with the propylene glycol in the presence of sulfuric acid. The overall idea is going to be the same. Since I do have a diol, now instead of having two equivalents of my alcohol, I'm going to put the diol around my carbonyl. So what I'm going to do, I will redraw my carbonyl, so I will have the cyclohexanone like that, and then I will redraw my diol next to it with the OHs pointing towards my carbonyl. So I have 3 carbons in there, so I'm going to redraw it like this. Pay very close attention to how you draw your molecules, don't accidentally lose your carbons. So here I have carbons 1, 2, and 3, and those carbons are 1, 2, and 3 right over here. So I didn't lose any carbons. It's very easy to lose carbons or misplace certain things in your molecule when you're moving them in space, so numbering your atoms is definitely a very good idea. Anyways, going back to my trick here, what I'm going to do, I will grab my eraser, I will get rid of the carbonyl in the middle, erase the hydrogen, then I'm going to take my pen and draw the connections between the oxygens and the carbon that used to be my carbonyl. So now, if I redraw it a little bit nicer, I have my bottom ring, bond, bond, oxygen, oxygen, and then carbons 1, 2, and 3, just like that, and here we have our product. So as you can see, the trick works both for open chain and cyclic acetals. So next time when you're working on the acetal formation reaction, use this trick first to quickly predict the product and then confirm the structure of your product by drawing the mechanism. With more practice, you'll be able to do it in your head without actually having to redraw the starting materials and then erasing the parts of the molecule at all. You'll be able to look at the molecule and actually easily imagine how the product looks like by doing this basically in the entire procedure in your head. Now, in the next video, we're going to talk about the acetal hydrolysis, which is the reverse process. So if you don't want to miss that one, make sure you subscribe to the channel, boop the like button, and I will see you tomorrow.